If you have responsibility for others in the workplace, maybe you're a supervisor, a team leader, or a manager, maybe you've had advice and feedback from others that you should be delegating more. There's a good chance that you have a rational understanding of why delegation could be beneficial to you and the people that work for you. And yet you find yourself not delegating even when it's possible. In this video, I'm going to explore some of the reasons that while we might understand the benefits of delegation, we get in our own way and we stop ourselves from delegating when it could be a really good idea. I'm Dr. Richard McKinnon. I'm a chartered psychologist and coach, and on this channel I share insights from the world of psychology to help you be your best self at work. Let's get stuck in. The bottom line here is if delegation was easy, everybody would be doing it. As a process, we might really rationally understand what needs doing. We simply ask someone that works for us to do something for us. But there's lots of things that get in the way. For example, someone might have responsibility to do it for us, but we retain the accountability for it being done. So if they make a mistake, if they fail to do it completely, it still sits with us. We don't abdicate that just because we've asked somebody else. And we might really have to fight the urge to stay involved in the task or the piece of work for that very reason. So if you're not delegating enough or as much as you might, you could find yourself firefighting a lot because even the best laid plans will fall apart in the face of events. So your to-do list might already be overflowing and then other things come your way. Not delegating that stuff means you're going to struggle just to get through what's in front of you. Not delegating means that you're not developing your team on the job. Delegation is a great way of exposing people to new activities, skills, levels of responsibility. No training required. It's such a great investment in people. But if you keep all of this work to yourself, they're not going to grow as a result. By failing to delegate, over time, you'll become a single person dependency. If you haven't involved anyone in your team in specific activities, the next time you are ill, absent, well, it means that you're the only person that could have done that, who could have known that, and it slows everything down. By involving other people in your work, by delegating effectively, you remove yourself as this single person dependency and you contribute to flexible resourcing. When you're not delegating, you're not demonstrating trust in the members of your team. You are implicitly saying, I'm the only person who can be trusted to do this. And that's not going to contribute positively to the team climate. And eventually, if you don't delegate, you're going to get overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, we do not make superior quality decisions. We do not manage our emotions well, and we're more likely to make mistakes. Is that the kind of people leader you want to be? So what are some of the ways that our own thoughts and feelings and behavior can get in the way of us engaging in effective delegation? Number one, and this is the absolute number one that I hear when I run workshops on the theme of delegation, the belief that it will be quicker if I do it myself. Now, in absolute terms, that's true. If you have the knowledge and the expertise, it's going to be far quicker for you to do the thing than it is to delegate it to someone else and give them the insight so they can learn how to do it too. But this is very short-term thinking, because there will be times where we need to pause and invest time to ensure someone else has some of that knowledge and can develop the capacity to do this task. It will always be quicker to do it yourself until it's not. Until that day when you are overwhelmed and when you can't see the wood for the trees and actually your performance suffers. So there are times when it's much more beneficial to invest a little bit of time in the now to involve somebody else. It's not quicker, but not everything is about speed. Probably number two that I hear in workshops, I'm too busy to delegate. And you can really feel that way, right? I've got too much to do. The last thing I want to have to do is to actually talk about this to someone on my team. I just don't have the time to schedule this conversation. But what if we looked at it another way? by taking some of that time out of our day and investing it in delegation, then, well, actually, some of that busyness will reduce. And busy is not good for us, right? We use that as a response to the question, how are you? What are you up to? Oh, I'm busy. But actually, busy is not good for us. Busy is overwhelm. Busy is poor decision making. Busy is jumping from thing to thing. Busy is not seeing activities through. Busy is keeping one nostril above the waterline. And who wants to live like that? So you may say to yourself, you're too busy to delegate, but delegation could be the solution to the levels of busyness you're feeling. I'm worried they won't do a good job. Absolutely. If they don't do a good job, then there will be consequences. But why would you delegate something high risk, super complex, with huge consequences to someone who's never done it before? That's not going to help anyone. Delegation is about identifying tasks that are a bit of a stretch for the other person and providing them with context, information, and support so there's a high likelihood of them doing well. And if it's not perfect, whatever that means, if it's late or if there are errors, it's an opportunity for you to reflect on how you've delegated and an opportunity for you to clarify with them how they could do better next time. There's nothing that will take away from their confidence than you taking that task back and never delegating to them again. It's a breach of trust, and it says, you had one chance and I'm never going to do this again. They're too busy to help me. Now, if I had £1 for every time I heard this phrase, I would be a very wealthy individual. One of the things that we neglect to do in the workplace a lot is get a detailed and accurate understanding of what other people are actually doing. Sure, we could look busy, we could be running around the place, our schedule could be full of meetings, but if we take a step back and look at what the team members are actually involved in, and we look at that through the lens of priorities, then we can, as manager, as team leader, make the decision. Actually, I prefer that they did this activity, and I'm going to give them permission to pause that, or I'm going to take it off them completely. If we just assume everyone is busy because they're running around the place and they're frantic and they're always sending emails, we're not really focused on outputs or priorities. So this is another way of negating this whole sense of busyness in the team by looking at things critically and objectively and pressing pause on the things that aren't really adding much value. They let me down in the past. This is a tough one. If we've asked someone to do something for us and they didn't do a good job, or they failed to do it completely, we might have a mental mark next to their name in our minds. We might view them as untrustworthy. We might say they're known that we can ever ask to do something again. That's not helpful. It's not helpful to them or to you. If you have mentally discounted members of the team that you could delegate to, then effectively you're managing with one hand behind your back. Everybody makes mistakes. You've made mistakes in the past. I've made mistakes. It's part of being human. If we look at this through the lens of compassion, we're able to connect with another human being and acknowledge that mistakes happen. And it doesn't represent them as a person. It's an aspect of them. It's an aspect of them in context. Maybe they made a mistake because they were far too busy. They had too much to do. Maybe there was a whole combination of events that led to that mistake. In my experience, very few people get out of bed in the morning and go to work with the intention of doing a terrible job and making life difficult for other people. Events, contexts get in the way. So rather than remove someone from the roster of people you could potentially delegate to, explore what went wrong. Give feedback and try and set them up for success so they are available on your mental list of people you could delegate to again in the future. Now, one of the other really common things we can say to ourselves is the assumptions about what we should be able to do. I talk a lot about the tyranny of should. It's a really unhelpful word. Should really just highlights the difference between how things are and how we think they ought to be. And it focuses on that gap. I should be able to do more. I should be able to cope with all of this. I should be able to get this work done and not bother other people. And of course, on that level, it's really unhelpful because the world is very fluid. It's very dynamic. And maybe what was true in the past is no longer true. Maybe responsibilities have shifted. Maybe levels of workload have changed. Maybe the makeup of the team is different. Should is unhelpful. Take a step back and look at things objectively. And look at the workload you've got to deal with. Look at the limited time, the limited attention, and the limited energy you can bring to the table each day and each week. And ask yourself critically, can I do all of this? Can I do all of this well? And if the answer is no, and it's probably going to be because we can't do everything, the next step is to identify who you can involve in it and delegate portions of it to. And this brings me to a final thing that gets in the way, that we maybe have the mental model that someone can't do this important piece of work for us. It's a bit of an all or nothing mentality, because for most things in the complex world of work in the 21st century, we could take an activity and slice bits off. We could identify tasks within a project that they could actually do for us. And over time, they build their awareness and their skills and their knowledge. It needn't be all of it or none of it. Look for opportunities to involve that person and build their capability over time, while over time reducing your involvement in that same activity. So, a simple list of simple things you can do to reflect on when it comes to delegation. Firstly, start small, start simple, test the waters. If you've never delegated before, start by delegating things that are of very little consequence. So if it does go wrong, there won't be a disaster. Look for those low-risk things that are relatively simple. Ask yourself what you're saying to yourself about delegation, and be critical. Ask yourself whether this is actually the case. And maybe you were nodding along with some of those examples that I shared a little bit earlier. Don't feel bad about that. They're really common beliefs. If you delegated more, how would it benefit you as a leader of people? How would it enable you to do more of the important or impactful, or the things that only you can do? How would it enable you to have more of a work-life balance or a manageable working day? How would it contribute to the growth and the positive work experience of the people that report to you? Think of the benefits and focus on those benefits as you dip your toe into the pool called delegation. If you're finding it difficult to identify what to delegate, use a prioritization matrix. I'll put a link in the notes below to a very simple blog post outlining a very commonly used matrix to help us identify things that are important or urgent or both or neither. And this way you can find things that are low risk or maybe easy but need to be done quite quickly. Maybe they're things that don't have a deadline, but someone could work at them in the background for you. Bringing prioritization into the mix can help move from it's all or nothing, it's a disaster or it's easy, into actually, let's look at the impact and the timeliness of these activities and match the person to it. Reflect on what your team members have told you about where they want to get to in their career. Maybe there's an aspect of work they want to learn about. Maybe there's a skill they want to develop. Maybe you've given them feedback on something that they need to polish. Focusing on that can help you match the person to the task you want to delegate, an opportunity for them and you, a real win-win scenario. For more complex or demanding or long-term work, delegate a portion of it, a task, a stream of activity, something simple, something that takes it off your plate and gives it to them, and grow that over time. Move away from that all or nothing mentality. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for help, for guidance, or maybe even training. Delegation, after all, is a skill. If you've realized this is something you want to do more of, but don't know where to start, ask a colleague. Maybe one of your peers is great at delegation. Ask your manager. Reach out to your learning and development colleagues and see, are there some resources they could share with you to give you more of a detailed plan to make a start on delegating more of this stuff so that you can do more of the stuff that matters. I hope you have found this useful, giving you some pause for thought and some ideas to implement when it comes to delegation with your team. Please, if you have any follow-up points or questions, drop them in the comments section below. Let me know what you thought about this, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.